Hello, Children's Bureau. Thank you for being part of this day of learning. You are now in Track B for the Innovative track, and I have the pleasure of moderating this great dialogue between Ron Brown, our CEO and president here at Children's Bureau, and Amber Sheik, who is the Chief Impact Officer and Principal of Sheik Impact. So we're really excited to have you both. And what we want to discuss today is how to create just innovative service delivery in the work that we do. And prior to us getting into that, Ron, let me ask you, how does innovation in our work look like, and what does it mean?
Yeah, thanks, Karina. Yeah, so when we think about innovation, it means really taking the services that we're doing, but also what are we doing extra? What are we doing? How are we thinking beyond that? And one of the ways that I frame this, it's interesting because you're Children's Bureau staff, so you'll know, and you may or may not have heard me give a tour when I tour people at Magnolia. And so I go back to when I started with Children's Bureau in 2000, and the board was asking itself, what more can we do about child abuse prevention? What more should we be doing? And the research that had come out at that point in time really talked very seriously about all the other pressures and things that were being put on families that created stress in those families, as also lending themselves to child abuse. And so as an agency, we decided that we were going to find a site where we could co-locate other organizations whose core competencies fit into those other things that we couldn't provide. So that means that we didn't have to be everything to everybody, first of all, but that we could find other people that were there. And those are, in the area of health and education and concrete services, of course, as supports, but also parenting skills and knowledge of those. So there's all those things that actually are now called, remarkably enough, the social determinants of health, are the things that we created Magnolia all about. And that in itself, conceptually, was really innovative. What are we doing differently? How are we thinking beyond just delivering a service to an individual?
I love that. I just want to piggyback off that actually quickly. So I always say in our industry, because we work in a lot of program development and fundraising, that what is innovative today, which usually has to be funded philanthropically, becomes best practice tomorrow, and then becomes part of our service delivery model at a systemic level. And so if we don't do it, if we don't take that risk as an organization, the system will never change. And I think Magnolia Place is just such a prime example of doing something that everyone thought might be a good idea if we just had the resources and had the time and the world was different. And Children's Bureau said, well, let's just prove that it can be different. And everything was better. Like it's really a really incredible model.
And to Amber's point, it's the interesting thing is that we opened that facility officially in 2007, 2008. And things that we were doing then are now starting to hit the rest of the world. Things that we've been working on for 15 years are now starting to be thought of. Place-based strategies are being thought of across the country, not just in Southern California, not just the work that we do, but others are taking that on and thinking about how to embed place-based strategies. The whole idea of community engagement at a deeper level as a partner in this process. The whole idea of context and understanding the context of the community and the individuals in those community and taking that into account, of course, falls right into our T-Rock work as well, but also in how we look and strengthen community, because we strengthen them with these strength-based approaches that honor the places where they have been and are going, and provide them with tools and connections to look forward to the world, to take another step forward and to engage with their neighbors, to facilitate on their own. And remarkably, we know that a lot of the community members that we've trained over time have become employees of Children's Bureau, employees of other organizations, and gone back to school. And all they needed at one point in time was a hand up and a little direction.
Wow, and it's so meaningful, and it's just so impressive how we started this with such a huge example of what innovation and service delivery means to Children's Bureau. And what really struck me is that you all said this was 15 years ago, and now we're barely starting to see that now. So let me ask you, Amber, as you know, we talked about what we do at Children's Bureau, but what would you see as a need as you work with various organizations regarding how they design the service delivery? Because we're designing it for 15, 20 years from now to really make that true change.
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I feel lucky to even get to think about this because I really believe that true trauma-informed services, services that are going to be calibrated for the next generation, the next cohort, actually start with the humans doing the services themselves. There is, secondary trauma is a real thing. Everyone who watches this will either know it by name or will know it by feeling. That when you are working with individuals with high ACE scores who have experienced trauma, environmental trauma, personal trauma, all of these things, that there is that level of vicarious trauma, or some people even call it just compassion fatigue, where over time our service providers themselves become potential clients. And one thing I can say more and more is I honestly, especially through the pandemic too. So it's like we had this level of trauma, we had compassion fatigue, then we had a pandemic, and now we have a level of we don't even know what to do with ourselves sometimes as service providers, dealing with our lives, dealing with our clients' lives, dealing with the system that we are working in and trying to both innovate and dismantle in many ways. And having a trauma-informed workplace and really thinking about what that looks like, I do think is the next frontier, because we cannot deliver services until we take care of ourselves. And we cannot take care of ourselves until we have the space to do that. I don't know if I could wave a magic wand, I would have our private and public institutions give us funding for that. I actually had a client recently where I was like, you know what we need to do? It's not going to happen. We need to shut down services for a month and all go inside and just cry, vent, heal, reorganize. I think of it as like a core to client pipeline, where once we heal our core, we can actually help heal our clients better. But I want, part of this is like, this needs to happen here. This is the organization where I think this could really happen for realsies. And I want, Ron, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm just cheering, of course, Amber. I mean, we took this very seriously during the pandemic. All the staff, you all on this call know that we really, really focused hard on your safety every step of the way. We can't keep you safe, we keep your family safe, we keep your loved ones safe, and then we keep the clients that you're engaging with, whether it's virtual or not, we keep them safe too. So safety was always right at the core of everything that we did. So we took that as one primary base, and then we added on to this self-care. And we've had lots of months of self-care and self-care challenges and different ways that you could participate, whether it's fun and games through a bingo process or yoga and Pilates on a Wednesday morning. We've been able to provide those opportunities for us to talk. We did a number of town halls during the pandemic just to have chats to keep people connected. We created a memorial period, particularly around the first main holidays after COVID had started, and trying to sit back and think and to give people an opportunity to share and engage with the loss that they've had, both the personal losses, but also the loss of all the rest of the stuff that we were stuck in the middle of the pandemic when we all felt so isolated. So we worked hard to keep that connection and keep the mental health component of our work alive, and to give opportunities. And that is really just not even going to what Amber's talking about, which is the compassion fatigue, because I'm just talking about people treating each other as humans during that, and what it was like to be human during a pandemic that we've never experienced in this world in this kind of way. And so we just did our best to do that. The compassion fatigue part and the part about all of you and the work that you do, it's why I get up in the morning. It's why I write my morning emails to you. It's why I try and acknowledge the work that you do, because somehow, some way, we have to get through the struggles of our everyday work. And sometimes it's not as easy as just saying, oh, that was the end of the week and now I can just have my weekend. I too wake up in the middle of the night worrying about things, worrying about staff, worrying about processes that are going on at work, let alone my own personal life. And so how do we create the space for that? And importantly, how do we create the opportunity for us to, one, share, or just to be acknowledged for us as individuals and the kinds of things that we're dealing with each and every day that may or may not be personal. They may all be professional. And yet, let's not forget that our personal life comes into it too, and things that we do are colored by that. So when I talk about our clients, I talk a lot about context. And if you look on my whiteboard in my office, and it was up there before the pandemic, it's still there now, it says context matters. And that means that, we all live in the context of all the environments coming in around us, all the systems that we're dealing with. And so we have to understand that, and nobody knows the context of our lives better than we do. So we have to honor that, and we have to be able to, one, share, but we also have to give latitude and empathy to each other for the context that they're all living through. One, a pandemic, and two, a professional life that deals with people in need on an everyday basis.
That actually, I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna turn it on Corina and Ron for a moment. What if you could give me like a couple words? How would you want your staff to feel when they came to work and went home?
Heard and seen.
Ron, how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Heard, seen, and maybe felt. Yeah.
You have a lucky you have a lucky team.
And what I hear you both saying, which I love, what I hear is that one of the things that a lot of us as organizations probably did was we started with the service delivery rather than really starting with the investment that you're talking about, Amber, the investment in humans, which, we've, Ron beautifully described. And when you're sitting here and investing in humans, then you're investing in their innovation. And when you're investing in that innovation, then the service delivery side comes in. And so it's really interesting that our funding is not set up that way. But it should be the other way around, because it really starts with the person. I mean, Ron said we bring ourselves to work. And if we're the ones bringing ourselves to work and we're creating change and innovative service delivery, we need to make sure that we feel that we are part of a bigger picture of whatever trauma-informed values all our organizations believe in. So it's a great point. So let me ask you, Ron, about how can we as Children's Bureau elevate our service delivery to really ensure that we continue living up to these trauma-informed values that we've been discussing today?
Really good question. So I go back to my original conversation, and that is challenging ourselves to do more. What does it mean? And to think beyond the delivery of a service, to think beyond a tunnel of a delivery, but think of the broadness. So if you're walking up to a house to deliver a service, you see beyond just the person at the front door that you're supposed to meet, but what's the street look like? What's the neighborhood look like? What's it feel like? What's behind that door? Is there anybody in that house experiencing maternal depression, driving the rest of the house nuts? Or kids that are having behavioral issues? What else needs to be helped in that family beyond what the single service ask is? Because it's really about being comprehensive in our approach and challenging ourselves every time we go to deliver a service to be comprehensive in our approach. And that requires us to be intentional. We can't be passive about it. So in order to really be innovative, we have to be intentional in how we look at our clients, how we look at our community, how we look at each other, and be intentional in what our goals are. And that those goals can't be that I delivered a service to you and that you said thank you or not, and I walked away. Because this is a relationship that we're building. It's a human connection. And our goal really needs to be that when I am delivering a service, how do I innovate so that the person does exactly what Amber asked Karina and I, feels felt and feels heard by a trusted partner, by someone that they believe, at least to a certain extent, has some care about them, and that gives them a path forward, that doesn't box them in a corner, that is like, okay, here's your service and you're done. That's not the case. How do we think bigger? And so our models need to be, we get paid to do a service. What are we wrapping around that service? What lenses are we taking so that we're not doing this coming out of this tunnel, but that it's broader looking, and how are we delivering that so that the recipients feel heard and felt and cared for? And
Yeah.
now we built a relationship, and once we do that, then we can do something with it. But really, that's what innovation is just challenging that, challenging how we're doing it, whether it's one service or another. Challenge yourself on that service delivery. How can you do more in that? What more can you do? What more can we be as an agency? Well, that's why we created Magnolia, like I said. What more can we do? What
Right.
more could you do? Not that you're not giving enough. Please don't think that I'm asking people to give more than they already are. I'm asking you to use your head in a different kind of way and wrap your heart around that as you're delivering it to the people that you're providing a service to, and trying to figure out how we can take them to a different place with a bigger outcome, a broader outcome, and in particularly a more sustainable outcome.
I love that, Ron, because what you're asking us to do is ask the next question, and always ask the next question rather than just taking one, whatever's in front of us, but just, how does this work? How does this feel? So I love that. I think it's a great ask. And I know we're wrapping it up with some time that we have left. So let me ask you, Amber, is what, as an outsider to Children's Bureau, but of course, part of our family, and our programs well, how can we think bigger and differently to create impact in our service delivery? What would be some advice you would give us at Children's Bureau?
I mean, I was writing down what Ron said, because if we could have each staff member do this, and both to clients and to other staff members, I feel like the innovation would come. So challenge yourself to help whoever's in front of you, clients or another staff member, feel felt, heard, and seen, and give them a path forward. Like that applies, that goes for client work, but it also just goes for how you interact with everyone else on your team. And when we're doing this hard work, it's tiring, right? And we're all managing other things as well. So how can we take better care of each other so we can take care of everyone else? So I would challenge Children's Bureau to be the heart. I love the idea of thinking differently, like Ron said, and wrapping your heart around that new framework of using your brain. I would say, is there a way that Children's Bureau can pilot something as very pure and simple as that, but very innovative, actually, is how to think differently about an approach from the inside. Like I said, like core to client. How can we change ourselves and reflect ourselves in our work in order to change the work we do out here? So honestly, I mean, Children's Bureau does incredible work. We're at the forefront of so many innovative programs. And I have to say, as an organization, you all of you that work in this organization really understand how to straddle best practice, what we know we can get paid to do and what we can get access to families to do, and innovation. So it's like we can use the current system and figure out how to push it just a little bit to get more work done. So I don't know, there's not a specific enough answer. So I guess my thing would be show up with your full heart in all of your interactions and figure out where you can just push it a little.
And what I heard, Amber, is you challenging us to really create impact. And how are you part of the bigger picture in creating impact as we create or continue looking at service delivery in a different manner? So I really like that, asking that challenge for staff. Ron, do you want to close it for us this afternoon?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Amber, for being here, and Karina for helping to facilitate. And I sit here and I take a deep breath because I like this is where I'm at. I mean, I'm trying to think, what more can we do? What more could we be doing? How are we thinking bigger? When we completed our last strategic plan, which was approved in October of 2021, we had prevention and primary prevention at the pinnacle of that. And why is that? Is because we want to really see a world where children never need to come to the attention of the child welfare system. And so how are we doing that? Well, we're doing that by building stronger communities, because children live in families and families live in communities. So if we can strengthen communities, and isn't that kind of innovative? Isn't that kind of out there? It's not necessarily what we're getting paid to do, but it's how we're going about doing it. And that's how we're spending our private dollars too, to figure out how to make communities stronger and more willing to take on each other and to embrace each other in a way that children have opportunities to grow up safely. Children have opportunities to thrive in ways that maybe they don't have right now. So, and what happens if we don't innovate? It's stagnation. We're just kind of in the same spot day in and day out. And I have to tell you, I am not satisfied with that. Not in any way, shape, or form. Yes, we can be a great organization doing good quality services day in and day out. But if we're not thinking about how to be more innovative and how to change the world as we live in it, then we're just like everybody else. And I don't want to be like everybody else. That's never been my goal. Certainly not as the chief program officer, nor as the CEO of Children's Bureau, to be like everybody else. And so for me, it does center around our ability to innovate and to think differently and to challenge ourselves collectively and individually each and every day.
Well, what an honor it is to just be part of this dialogue, and having Ron, for you to always share a little bit of what goes on in your brain. I think it really helps us as an organization be innovative. And Amber, thank you for walking us through just as an external expert of what's happening in the community. So thank you for your time. And for all of you, you'll be going to the next session. So thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate your presence. Take care.